Hey, asshole, there's no mail in there!
Yeah, no one cares about you.
Damn it. Why do they have to be outside right now? That's why I told my parents that I didn't want to get the mail. The neighborhood mailboxes were right next to their house, the Thompson twins, Molly and Mason. They were both in the backyard, jumping on their trampoline.
Hey, asshole, didn't you hear me? There's no mail in there for you!
I didn't want any trouble, so I did my best to ignore them. I opened the mail slot, and they were at least right about one thing. There wasn't any mail. I closed the slot and quickly started walking back home. Why do they have to live at the end of the street?
Oh, you think you're better than us? We're talking to you!
That's when Mason and Molly stopped jumping and started to chase me. Damn it, not this again. Guys, just leave me alone, I shouted, like that was gonna stop them.
Don't run away from us.
Molly was gaining on me. She was a lot faster than Mason and definitely faster than me. I knew I'd have to bust ass if I was gonna outrun Molly. Even though I made it to the driveway of my house, I didn't slow down. I opened the front door and slammed it shut behind me. I looked through the front window and saw Mason and Molly standing on the sidewalk in front of my house.
Don't think this is over!
Yeah, we'll get your ass another day.
I backed away from the front window and saw my dad in the living room. There was no mail today. My dad just looked at me with a disappointed gaze.
Playing with the Thompson twins again?
No, I said quickly.
You need to stick up for yourself. They'll just keep at it if you don't fight back.
Thanks for the tip. I'm going to be in my room. As I shut the door, I plopped on my bed. I didn't get why Mason and Molly hate me so much. We actually used to get along just fine as kids. I always got invited to their birthday parties, and we used to go to the lake together, where we would hang out, fish, and tell stories. There was this one story they used to love sharing, probably because they knew it scared me a bit. Even then, they were jerks to me in many ways. The story was about Trash Can Dan. There's a house like 2 blocks away from ours that's been vacant for years. The last tenants had a little boy named Dan. He was younger than me, so I never really played with him. But one day, he was playing hide and seek with some friends and hid in the trash can in the street. He hid there for a while until the garbage truck came. The driver of the truck was unaware that Dan was in the trash can. He was wearing headphones, so the arm of the garbage truck grabbed the trash can and lifted it into the compactor with Dan still inside. The driver was still unaware of Dan to the point where he couldn't hear the screams of him as the compactor began to crush his body. It wasn't until Dan's parents came rushing outside the house that the driver knew anything was wrong. But it was too late. Dan's body was crushed into a mangled mess. It was all over the news, and I remember kids were not allowed to play hide and seek. Like any kid would hide in a trash can after that. Immediately after that incident, the family moved out of the house, and we never saw them again. Not too long, an urban legend transpired in the neighborhood. If you place a personal belonging of someone in the trash can of the house, then take the trash can to the street, and the garbage man picks it up, then Trash Can Dan will come and scare you. I don't know how true this stupid urban legend is, because no one has seen Trash Can Dan. But like I said, Mason and Molly love sharing that story. It wasn't until the end of the school semester, whenever they both started to change. Their father left and their parents got a divorce. After that, the twins became more recluse and started becoming assholes towards everyone. The last time I hung out with them was at the beginning of summer. We were playing video games together. Everything was going well until I went to get a soda from the kitchen. They have a stand in the living room that displays a snow globe collection. It was a part of their father's, and it seemed like the only part of him left in the house. Well, whenever I went to get a soda, I bumped into the stand and a snow globe fell and shattered all across the floor. That's when Molly and Mason erupted and started cursing me out. I thought I was gonna get my ass kicked because Mason shoved me and I fell on the floor. I only managed to get away because I was shoved near the front door, and I got up and instantly rushed outside back home. And that's how we got where we are now. The rest of the day, I just stayed home, playing video games and watching videos on YouTube. After a couple of days of staying in, I felt safe again. Even though I like being outside, there's nothing better than pulling all-nighters playing video games. It wasn't until one day my dad came busting into my room that disrupted my safety net.
You need to go outside.
Why?
Because I said so. I pay for the shit around here and you're running up my electric bill.
Dad, please, I don't want to go out.
No, I'm not gonna have a bitch for a son. If those damn twins give you any trouble, fight back. Even if you get your ass beat, don't be a pushover.
But what will I do outside?
I don't care. Do something. Go fishing. You're just not gonna be inside.
Dad, please.
No, this conversation is over. I will take your games away for the whole summer if you're not out of the house in 5 minutes.
That's when my dad walked out of my room. What the hell? I'm not hurting anyone. I don't know why I have to leave. My dad is a hard ass and I know his threats are not idle. Whenever he says something, I know he means it. Every time I acted up, he always followed through with his punishments. So I knew he means business when he says he'll take away my games for the whole summer. I guess I didn't have much time to get outside the house. I grabbed my backpack out of my closet and went into the garage and got my fishing pole and gear. Before I left the house, I looked at my dad who was in the living room. I'm going fishing.
Good. And remember to strike first.
Thanks for the tip. I closed the front door and started walking towards the lake. I took the long way because my usual route includes passing by the Thompson house. I also didn't want to take the path either, because if they happened to be on the trail, then I'd definitely be screwed. So I had to figure out a new route. It's annoying, but it beats getting my ass kicked. Whenever I finally reached the lake, I dropped my backpack and fishing pole. I'll need to get some bait. This wasn't going to be a problem. I knew an area of wet soil along the lake that has a plethora of worms. I walked to that spot, lifted some rocks, dug a little bit, and sure enough, I found a gaggle of worms. I grabbed a handful and put them in my bait box and walked back to where I placed my fishing pole. I hooked a worm and cast a line into the lake. After a while, I felt at peace. I always enjoyed fishing. It never failed to put my mind at ease. My dad was right after all. I shouldn't have let Molly and Mason scare me the whole summer.
Well, hello, asshole.
Shit. Why do they have to be here right now? Molly and Mason appeared from the woods, slowly walking up to me. I would have ran off, but I honestly had nowhere to go. Plus, my line was still in the lake.
Don't look too happy to see us.
Molly said with a devilish grin. Guys, just leave me alone. I just want to fish.
Well, we want our dad's snow globe back.
Look, I said I was sorry. I didn't mean for that to happen.
Shut up. Your sorry means nothing.
I could feel my body tense up. Talking to them won't do anything. They had a vendetta against me. I remember what my dad told me. If I can get the first hit in, maybe I could get away. I could feel a tear of anger roll down my face.
Aw, look at him. He's crying now.
Not only is he an asshole, but he's a bitch.
I could feel all the blood in my body boil. My face now streaming tears of hate.
Yeah, definitely a bitch.
Just go away! Mason was standing right in front of me.
What are you gonna do about it, bitch?
He shoved me in the chest, and out of reflex, I swung at his face. My fist connected with the left side of his cheek.
What the fuck?
Mason grabbed his cheek and stumbled a bit. Before I could make a run for it, Molly tackled me to the ground. I tried to get away, but Molly's entire weight was on me, and she was a lot stronger than I anticipated.
You're fucked now.
Molly was on top of me, thrashing wildly with her fists. The only thing I could do was try to protect myself. I went into the fetal position, covering my face and tensing my body, trying to soften the blows. It wasn't long until I could feel Mason's presence over me.
Move, it's my turn.
Molly stopped hitting me, and I could feel her weight lift from my body.
You piece of shit!
Then I could feel Mason's foot dig into my stomach. The pain of the first blow was incredibly excruciating. I turned to my other side. I could not stand the pain. That's when Mason started kicking the shit out of my back. The first couple of kicks were unbearable, but then my back started to become numb. I was hopeless to do anything. All I could do was cry and hope Mason would tire soon. I was in hysterics crying. I just wanted it to stop.
Shut up! Just shut up!
Mason stopped kicking me. My back battered to a pulp. I don't know if I was going to be able to get up anytime soon. I just laid there, pathetic, crying.
Hey, I think he gets it.
Shut up! He's just a bitch!
After a few moments, I figured they would leave. They made their point. I was pathetic and worthless.
No, we're not done here. Molly, get those worms.
Mason, that's enough.
No, get those fucking worms.
My eyes were still closed, and there was a few moments of silence.
If you're not going to do it, I will.
I could feel the heavy stomps of Mason move away from me. I could hear him grab a worm.
Mason, stop!
After that, I heard Mason shove Molly to the ground.
You're weak, just like father.
That's when I felt Mason right next to me.
Open your eyes, pussy.
I didn't want to, but what else can I do? I reluctantly opened my eyes. All I could see was Mason's hand in my face holding a worm.
Eat it.
I slowly raised my head and looked at him. No.
You're going to eat it.
Without hesitation, Mason grabbed my face and forced the worm into my mouth. I tried my best to fight back, but I was sore and it was too much pain.
Chew it.
I started to chew the worm and started to gag. The taste I will never forget. I wanted to throw up.
Stop it!
Molly got up from the ground and pushed Mason away. He fell to the ground, almost broken from a trance. I spit the worm out and continued to cry.
We have to leave now.
Not yet.
Mason walked up next to me.
If you tell anyone about this, you're going to get it even worse.
He kicked me in the stomach one last time. This kick was far worse than the others because I wasn't expecting it, and I felt another surge of pain erupt from my stomach.
This is mine now.
Mason grabbed my backpack and fishing pole.
Let's go.
Molly and Mason then walked back into the trees, heading back home. I was left alone, processing what just happened. All I could do was cry until I couldn't anymore. My father's advice was wrong. Why would he tell me to do that? I laid there, cursing my father, trying to get myself together. It felt like no matter what movement I did, everything ached, especially my back. I had to fight through the pain just to stand up. I started my slow walk back home. Every step I took, I could feel throughout my back. I felt like an old man walking. I tried to walk normal, but I knew I was walking with a crippling stagger. I took the long way home again. Whenever I reached my house, my father was passed out on the couch. Just seeing him made me angry. The last thing I wanted was for my dad to see me like this. He would think I was more pathetic if I told him what happened. I went into my room and fell onto my bed. I cried into my pillow until I couldn't anymore. My feelings and body went numb. I just stared blankly at the wall. I'm going to make them pay. I don't know how, but I'm going to get them back. That's when I looked outside my window and saw trash cans lined in the street. Trash day was tomorrow, and our neighbors always put the trash out the day before. That's when an idea popped into my head. I knew how I was going to get them back. Trash Can Dan. It was perfect. Trash Can Dan would scare them and no one would suspect me. A sinister wave of joy overcame me. How great would it be to scare the shit out of Molly and Mason? Even though my body was sore and bruised, this thought remedied the pain a little bit because it was all I could think about. The only issue is, how am I going to get a personal belonging of Molly and Mason? It's not like they were going to give me anything, except maybe another ass beating. I had to steal something, but what? That's it! I'll steal their basketball! They had a portable basketball hoop, and the basketball was always close by, either in the backyard or sometimes in the front yard. I know it will be there. I will wait until it's really late tonight before I strike, which is brilliant because tomorrow is trash day, so right after I can just drop the basketball into the trash and be done with it. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. I had a bulletproof plan. All I had to do now was wait. I played video games until it was time for dinner. I tried my best to move naturally while eating at the table and ignore the aches and pains, but my father knew something was up.
Did you see the twins today?
No, I said, lying, but my father knew that.
Okay, it's good to stick up for yourself.
And that was it. Nothing else was said about the matter. Even if I told him what happened, I knew he would have been more disappointed in me for not sticking up for myself better. He would think I was pathetic. I clenched my fists really tight after that thought. It fueled me even more to go through my plan tonight. After dinner, I went into my room and waited. I knew Molly and Mason stayed up pretty late. so I planned to make my moves at around 4 a.m. There's no way they'd still be up then. And even if they were, they wouldn't think to look outside. It was only 10, so I had some time before I could leave. I set an alarm for 4 a.m. and started playing video games. I knew I had to keep my mind off the plan, or else time would go by really slow. I got so invested playing that the alarm startled me when it went off. I almost forgot why I said it, but then anger overcame me when I thought about why I said it. Maybe Trash Can Dan will make Mason eat worms. The thought brought a little joy. I put my shoes on and snuck out the window of my bedroom and made my moves towards their house. I think the adrenaline of knowing that I had to be quick made my body ache less, because even playing video games was a struggle, but now the pain was a little bit more bearable. I knew I didn't want to be seen, so I had to move quickly, the fastest my body would allow. It wasn't long before I noticed their house, and to my surprise, the basketball was in the front lawn, next to the garage. It was like they placed it there for me, wanting me to steal it. This was way too easy. I couldn't believe it. I set my focus on the ball and dashed towards it. An excitement rushed through my body. My only concern was to get this ball. I reached the yard and grabbed the basketball and booked it towards Trash Can Dan's house. It was so close it didn't take me long to get there. I saw the trash can by the side of the house. Without hesitation, I threw the basketball inside the bin and rolled the trash can to the side of the street, trying to blend it with all the others. Hopefully the garbage man doesn't notice and picks it up with all the rest. After the trash can was lined in the street, I sprinted home. I climbed through my bedroom window and jumped into my bed. I checked the time. Wow. It only took me 10 minutes to do all that. If I wasn't hurting so much, I probably could have done it faster. Once the high of the run wore off, I could feel all the aches and pains again in my body. But I didn't care. I looked at it as a reminder of what they did to me and how what I did was justified. I got comfortable in my bed and fell asleep with a smile on my face. I woke up with the sounds of a garbage truck outside my house. They usually arrive around noon, so I wasn't shocked when I checked the time and it said 12:34. I was asleep for hours, but it only felt like minutes. That's when my dad entered the room.
Make yourself useful and check the mail.
Normally, I would get irritated anytime he ordered me around, because that meant I'd probably run into Molly and Mason. But not today. In fact, I was in such a good mood, I smiled and said back, "Sure, anything for you, Pops." This surprised my father for a second, but then he just walked out of my room. I forced my body out of bed. I was still sore, but it was a bearable sore. I put my shoes on and walked out of the front door. Before I checked the mail, I wanted to see if the garbage man got the trash from Trash Can Dan's house. So I headed that way. It didn't take me long to reach the house. Whenever I reached the trash can, my body was overcome by excitement. I knew the garbage man had already been here because the other trash cans that were overflowing with trash last night were empty. I put my hand on top of the lid. I almost didn't want to lift it open because I didn't want to be disappointed, but I had a feeling I wasn't going to be. My whole plan worked out too perfectly last night. There's no way the garbage man skipped this trash can. I couldn't take the excitement anymore. I lifted up the lid, and to my delight, the basketball was gone. My feeling was right. I could have screamed. I was so excited. This feeling empowered me. I rolled the trash can back to the side of the house. It's the least I could do after all. I made my way to the mailboxes, and for once, I wanted to see Molly and Mason. And sure enough, as I got close to their house, they were already standing near their portable basketball hoop, almost as if they were waiting for me.
Hey, asshole, do you have my basketball?
No. I almost laughed with my reply, and that seemed to piss off Mason.
What's wrong with you? Stop smiling.
Just tell him where the ball is.
Molly said that with a look of guilt across her face. I told you, I don't have your basketball, but I know who does. Mason got closer to me and grabbed my shirt.
Stop fucking with us. Where's my basketball?
He raised his fist in the air as if he was ready to punch me. I still kept the smirk on my face. I don't know why, but I wasn't scared. Trash Can Dan has it.
Now I know you're fucking with us.
Mason lowered his fist and punched me in the stomach. I fell to the ground.
He said someone else has it, Mason, so stop.
Shut up!
No, it's true. I put your basketball in the trash can last night, and the garbage man picked it up this morning. Maybe if you're lucky, Trash Can Dan will give it back whenever he sees you. Mason looked like he was getting ready to kick me, but then Molly shouted,
Mason, get off of him! Mom's coming!
We all looked down the street, and their mother's blue car was driving up.
This isn't over, asshole!
I got to my feet and started running home as their mom pulled into the driveway. Whenever I got back to the house, my dad asked from the living room,
Did we get any mail?
Shit. I was so overwhelmed about everything that I forgot to check the mail. I quickly lied and said no, and then went back to my room, where I triumphantly played video games the rest of the day. Even though Mason punched me, I knew that day I was the winner. I didn't care if Trash Can Dan was real or not. The looks of horror and confusion on their stupid faces was enough for me. It wasn't that late until I started to feel tired. I realized that I put my body through a lot. It was a struggle to even stay awake at dinner, but somehow I managed. After dinner, I got in bed. I so wish I could be at their house right now. I bet Mason won't sleep at all tonight. That's when I closed my eyes and dozed off. I woke up with the sounds of police sirens going down our street. I didn't think much of it at first, but whenever the sounds didn't dissipate, I began to worry. That means something happened close by. I could hear my parents talking about the sirens. I knew my father wouldn't want to go check it out because anytime there's a car accident or anything of that nature, he doesn't check the scene. He always says it's none of our business what happened. Normally, I wouldn't care either, but I had a weird inclination that Molly and Mason had something to do with the sirens. So I got up from my bed and walked towards the front door. I told my parents that I was going to check the mail, and like clockwork, my dad said,
It's none of our business what happened.
I just ignored him and went outside anyway. I started walking towards the mailboxes, and I could see the whole neighborhood outside trying to figure out what was going on. As I got closer to the mailboxes, I could see police cars and an ambulance parked in front of Molly and Mason's house, with a bunch of people surrounding the scene trying to get a glimpse of anything. I felt my stomach drop. This feeling was worse than getting my ass beat by Molly and Mason. The joy I felt yesterday and last night was completely overshadowed by guilt. I wanted to turn around and walk back home, but I was compelled to see what happened, hoping that I had nothing to do with this. I blended in with the crowd because I could see Molly and her mom both crying on the front lawn. They were in hysterics. Some people in the crowd were crying as well. My knees started to get weak. I suddenly got extremely nauseous. Why are they crying? Where was I couldn't finish that thought, because that's when two guys carrying a black body bag came outside their front door. The cries from Molly and her mom grew louder, and a feeling of dread could be felt in the crowd. I knew Mason was in that body bag, but I didn't want it to be real. No, this can't be. Trash Can Dan was an urban legend. He wasn't real. The nauseous feeling grew inside my stomach. I knew I was gonna throw up. I need to get away from here. Without thinking, I pushed people out of the way and started running home. I don't know if Molly saw me, but I knew I couldn't stay there a moment longer. I was trying my best to keep the vomit inside as I was running home. I made it to the front yard and started throwing up on the lawn. Tears came rolling down my eyes. I didn't know if it was because I felt sorry for Mason or from the extreme feeling of guilt. My face was smeared with tears and there was vomit everywhere. I know, I looked pathetic. What made matters worse was my mom and dad came outside to check on me. I didn't care if they saw me like this. I might have had a dealing with Mason's death, and that's all that plagued my mind. I was expecting my dad to yell at me to stop crying or embarrassing myself, but he didn't. He didn't say anything as my mom held me in her arms. He had an expression on his face I've never seen before. It was still stern, but I could see some kind of compassion in his eyes. I think he knew that I was hurting, and that was enough for me. Eventually, we all went inside. I went inside my room and didn't leave the rest of the day. Not even to get dinner. My parents just left me alone. The only thing that kept me company were my thoughts. I didn't want Mason to die. I didn't think Trash Can Dan was real. Maybe it had nothing to do with the urban legend. I didn't know what to think. I couldn't even play video games to get my mind off Mason. I didn't kill him, so how could I be blamed for this? I stared blankly at the wall until my body started forcing me to sleep. I'll get more answers tomorrow. When I woke up the following day, I knew who to ask about what happened to Mason. My mother. She knew everyone in the neighborhood and was close to most. If anyone was going to know what happened, it would be her. And I think she really wanted to find out for my sake after seeing me break down. What she told me wasn't much, but it put my mind at ease. She said that Mason died of natural causes, and that's all she could find out from people talking in the neighborhood. Since the death happened so soon, people didn't pry for more information than that. The feeling of guilt was lifted. So, it was natural causes. It wasn't Trash Can Dan. The more I thought about it, the more I felt stupid for thinking that throwing a basketball in a trash can would be the reason for the death of Mason. It was just pure coincidence. After knowing that, I didn't stress about being responsible. The next few days were tense in the neighborhood. You could feel it in the air. Every time I went to get the mail and walked by the Thompson house, it felt uneasy. Usually Molly and Mason would be playing, just waiting for me to walk by so they could unleash their anger on me. But it was silent. It was like the house was dead. Molly wasn't even out to torment me. I'd walk back home with the mail. I felt horrible about Mason, but I was at least glad I wasn't responsible for his death and that Trash Can Dan was just a silly story. The days went by normally, and it wasn't long until I was woken up by the sounds of the garbage truck. It was trash day. For some reason, it felt weird. I couldn't explain it. Something was just off to me. After I ate lunch, I went out to get the mail. To my surprise, Molly was waiting by the mailboxes. I didn't know what to do. I froze whenever she looked up and stared at me dead in the eyes with a maniacal look.
You're gonna fucking get it.
Excuse me?
You killed Mason.
What? No, I didn't. I was confused by what Molly was saying. He died of natural causes. That's what my mother said.
Your mother doesn't know shit.
What are you talking about? I started to panic the way Molly was looking and talking to me.
I don't know how, but you had something to do with this.
My body started to tremble in fear. I could barely get my words out. Are you talking about Trash Can Dan?
Yes. Who else would I be talking about, you fucking idiot?
But he never showed up. How could that be my fault?
Just shut up!
She started to sound like Mason.
Tell me, asshole. Have you been fishing lately?
The fear I was feeling was now interrupted with confusion by Molly's question. No, why?
Yeah, I figured. Kinda hard to fish without a fishing rod.
All the hairs on my body stood up. My stomach felt like it fell to the ground. My body started to sweat uncontrollably. They took my fishing rod that day. I didn't have to ask to know that Molly put my fishing rod into the trash can. Molly gave me a malevolent smile.
Say hi to Trash Can Dan for me, asshole.
Molly then left me by the mailboxes and went back into her house. I felt nauseous again. I couldn't hold it in. I threw up. The world seemed to stop. I felt alone. What was I gonna do? I couldn't tell my parents or anyone what I did. I couldn't stay next to these mailboxes either. I slowly forced myself to walk home. Once I went inside, my father was in the living room.
Any mail?
I just looked back and shook my head no, saying nothing, and walked to my room. That overwhelming feeling of loneliness came back. There had to be a way to get out of it, right? Maybe Molly was just fucking with me. She was just trying to scare me. Trash Can Dan wasn't real. I stayed in my room contemplating what Molly said to me until it was time for dinner. My parents and I ate again in silence. My father ate like nothing was wrong. I looked at him with a despised glare, but it almost felt like he was ignoring me. I hate my father. If it wasn't for him, none of this would have happened. I wouldn't have gone fishing. I wouldn't have gotten my ass kicked. Mason would still be alive. And most importantly, my life wouldn't be at risk. I finished dinner, clenching my fists the entire time. My mother cleaned the table, and I went into my room. I left all the lights on and sat on my bed, waiting to see if Trash Can Dan would show up. I wanted to play video games, but I was too scared to even turn the console on. I just sat and waited for anything to happen. Every sound in the house made me jump. After a few hours of nothing happening, I started watching game tutorials on my phone to at least pass the time. I was still alert, but a little more relaxed. Before I knew it, I could see the sun's rays enter my room through the window. It was morning, and Trash Can Dan never showed up. I stayed up all night, scared for nothing. I could hear my mom enter the kitchen, making a fresh cup of coffee. I knew it. Molly lied to me. She just wanted to scare me, but that still doesn't explain how Mason died. Was it bizarre? Sure, but it didn't seem to be connected to Trash Can Dan. If Trash Can Dan was gonna show up, it would have been last night, because Mason died the same night I threw his basketball in the trash can. But here I am, still alive. This didn't make sense, but it didn't have to. I am alive, and that's all that matters. I spent the majority of the day outside. After staying inside for most of the week and staying up all night, I just wanted to be outdoors. I know this is gonna sound wrong, but knowing that Mason and Molly were no longer going to be an issue for me gave me a sense of peace, even if it was at the expense of Mason's life. I hated them, even more than I hated my father. It just seemed like they were put on this world to make my life a living hell. After spending majority of the day on the lake, skipping rocks and exploring, I noticed the sun was starting to set. It was beautiful. I stayed a little longer than usual to enjoy the view. I finally felt a little tranquility in my life. As the sun started to disappear from the lake's horizon, I started to walk home. Whenever I reached my house, the street lamps were on. I pretty much spent the whole day outside. Hopefully, for once, my dad will be proud about that he didn't have to force me to go outside. As I walked inside, my dad was already at the dinner table, sitting with my mom already eating dinner. I pulled up a chair and joined them. My dad didn't say much of anything except for one thing.
You look like shit. Did you get any sleep last night?
I just shook my head and said no. And that was pretty much it. I didn't have the energy to hate him at the moment. After we finished, I said my goodnights and got ready for bed. My bed felt incredibly comfortable, more so than ever before. After everything I've been through and the lack of sleep, my body was ready to shut down. I closed my eyes and seconds later, I was asleep. I was woken up by a terrible odor. My whole room was filled with the foul stench of garbage. It smelled like a landfill. The overpowering smell made me start to gag. Whenever my eyes got adjusted to the darkness, my body froze in fear and my heart began to race. In the middle of my room stood a boy, or at least the stature of a boy. The figure was small, its body was mangled, disfigured, and covered in a brown wax that was dripping all over the floor. The figure also had no eyes, and it had a black substance spewing from its mouth. No, this can't be. This is not happening. It was Trash Can Dan. He grabbed my ankle and pulled me off the bed in one swift movement. Even though he was small, he had a supernatural strength and grip on me. I tried my best to free myself by kicking and thrashing wildly, but he was unfazed. Every time I kicked or tried to loosen his grip, my hands and feet would just slip off because of the brown wax dripping from his body. I yelled and screamed as loud as I could for help. Where were my parents? Could they not hear me? Trash Can Dan handled me like a rag doll. I tried grabbing onto anything to slow him down or break free, the door frame and sides of walls, anything. But my attempts were in vain because he easily pulled me away with incredible force. He slowly dragged me to the front door. I tried screaming again. Mom, Dad, help me! Help me! But they never came. Their bedroom door didn't even open. Trash Can Dan opened the front door and continued to drag me slowly outside. Again, I tried grabbing onto anything to break free, the door frame, the porch beams and railings, but I was easily pulled away by the force of Trash Can Dan. Please stop! Let me go! I pleaded for my life as I was being dragged on the front lawn. You don't have to do this! But Trash Can Dan didn't break his stride. He stopped dragging me whenever we reached the trash can in front of my house. He only hesitated for a moment. and then opened the lid. Oh God, please no, don't put me in there. That didn't stop him. I thought he was gonna throw me in the trash can, but instead, he flipped me onto my stomach and my face was full of dirt. I suddenly felt 2 big stomps on my back. Ah! The worst pain I've ever felt in my life shot through my entire body. I felt like someone swung a sledgehammer twice on my back and broke every bone on my spine. I couldn't move. I tried moving everything, but nothing would budge, not even my toes or fingers. I was paralyzed. Stop! Please, no! That's when Trash Can Dan lifted me from the ground and threw me into the trash can, closing the lid on top. It wasn't long until I heard a garbage truck driving up. I tried my best to move my body, but my body wasn't listening to me. I don't see how I was still alive or even conscious. The arm of the garbage truck grabbed the trash can and started lifting it up. Please, I am sorry. I am so fucking sorry. My body was thrown out of the trash can and into the garbage truck. My body landed upright, facing the sky. I couldn't move. My body was useless, just like me. Then the compactor was turned on and the walls began to close around me. No, stop! Slowly, the space got smaller and I couldn't do anything. My heart felt like it was gonna burst any minute. I am sorry, Mason. Even though he was a jerk to me, he didn't deserve this. No one deserves this. I don't deserve this. I thought Trash Can Dan just scared you. I didn't think he actually came for you. The compactor began to close on my body. No, stop!
The police were already on the scene. Of course, there was a crowd of people, and rightfully so. I remembered this neighborhood. I was here about a week ago trying to help that Thompson boy. He was dead before we even arrived. As I looked through the crowd, I saw the twin sister of the boy who died. I don't remember her name, but it was definitely her. I remembered seeing her because she didn't look worried or sad like all the people in the crowd. She looked angry. I just found that to be odd. As I entered the house, I could see a woman crying uncontrollably in the living room, and a man sitting next to her. He wasn't crying, he just had a stern look across his face, staring blankly at no one. Some people react differently to death and trauma. I made my way down the hall and entered a room. There was a boy laying in the bed. I didn't have to check his pulse to know that he wasn't alive anymore. This was the exact scene as the Thompson boy down the street. The autopsy reported that he died in his sleep due to heart complications, but he was a healthy boy, so for him to die in his sleep was tragic and incredibly unusual. After all my years of being an EMT, I've never seen or heard anything like this before. I've seen some pretty horrific stuff, things I wish to unsee, but 2 boys dying in their sleep in the same neighborhood about a week apart from each other was unheard of. There's this condition called SUNS, or Sudden Unexpected Nocturnal Death Syndrome, but it's a genetic disease and it's extremely rare. Basically, the body doesn't give the heart the needed electrical signals to beat, and it usually happens at night because the heartbeat isn't as strong when you sleep. This can happen to healthy people, but again, it's extremely rare and genetic. I think it was the inspiration for that movie where that burnt guy kills people in their sleep. But what happened here was real, and I don't think we'll ever really know how or why this happened.